judicial elections. Oops, got it. I am Deborah Gross, CEO of PMC. I want to thank the tremendous co-sponsors who helped us spread the word about this event. We have over 400 registrants, so people will be coming in throughout the evening, I'm sure. We received the sponsorship support of Allegheny County Bar Association, Allegheny County Law Library, Carnegie Library, Committee of 70, Dauphin County Bar Association, the Elevation Project, Free Library Philadelphia, League of Women Voters of Pennsylvania, League of Women Voters of Pittsburgh, Montgomery County Bar Association, Pennsylvania Bar Association, Philadelphia Bar Association, and Every Voice, Every Vote. That's a collaborative project managed by the Lenfest Institute for Journalism. To learn more about that project and a full list of the supporters, visit www.everyvoice-everyvote.org. PMC will have the recording of this program available on our website and YouTube channel, and it will be broadcast on PCN on Thursday and Sunday at 10 a.m. PMC is a nonprofit dedicated to assuring a Pennsylvania judicial system which provides impartiality, fairness, accessibility, and respect. We have advocated for judicial reforms that promote the rule of law, access to justice, and a diverse, qualified, and independent judiciary. We provide numerous educational programs about the Pennsylvania court system, the judiciary, and the law to all Pennsylvanians, including college and high school students. If you would like to help us or would like us to present to your group or organization, please reach out to me. The elections are November 7. Please do vote and encourage your neighbors, friends, and colleagues to vote. Historically, in Pennsylvania, less than 30% of voters vote in odd-numbered years, which means that the minority is making a decision for the majority. And that turnout percent decreases when the ballot does not have a lot of contested positions. Judges make important decisions that impact your lives. And state court judges have far greater impact on your lives than federal court judges. For example, our Commonwealth Court, which you will hear about and hear from the candidates, recently ruled that the way Pennsylvania funds its education is unconstitutional under the PA Constitution. Our Supreme Court last year upheld the constitutionality of mail-in voting. You can find out more information about the candidates and the courts for which they're running on our website, www.pmconline.org. There's also great nonpartisan voter information guides on Spotlight PA and Committee of 70 and the League of Women Voters. We've received many questions from you, and I thank you very much. As a result, and because of the limited amount of time we have for the candidates, we will not be taking any Q&A. Yes, we will finish before the Phillies game starts. I also want to explain that many of the questions which were sent to us were issue questions, asking the judges their opinion on specific issues. However, under the Pennsylvania Code of Judicial Conduct, judicial candidates cannot make pledges, promises, or commitments on specific issues or on cases that could appear in front of them. That is to protect the impartiality of judges and to provide us confidence that the judges will make decisions based on the facts and law before them. Finally, I mentioned we are on a tight time frame, so this is going to be like speed dating. The candidates will be given limited time to answer their questions, and you may see me holding up placards to notify the candidates that their time is up. So you'll see a yellow for 15 seconds and a red for stop. So I wanted to just explain how we're going to control this as we're all on Zoom. We will first be focusing on the candidates for Commonwealth Court, then Superior, and then Supreme, because we reverse the order from our May primary forum. I wanted to just say that Maria Battista, who is a candidate for the Superior Court, is not able to join us because she was in a car accident that has involved a brief hospitalization, and she is now taking time off from the campaign trail to recover. But she does look forward to getting back on the road. I will now pass the baton to Bridget Landy-Curry, a member of PMC's Board of Directors and of counsel to McNeese, Wallace, and Newark, who has argued many cases in Pennsylvania's appellate courts. Thank you, Bridget, for being our moderator.
Thank you, Debbie, and thank you to PMC for this opportunity I also want to echo Debbie's thank you to everyone who is attending this evening and spreading the word about this important election. We're so fortunate to live in a democracy, and it really does demand our participation. So thank you for being here, to everyone and to the candidates as well. As Debbie noted, Election Day is just 2 weeks away, and we will hear from candidates running to serve as judges at various levels of our judiciary. And that judiciary can be a little confusing if you're not familiar. So before we hear from the candidates, we're going to take just a few minutes to briefly frame the discussion with a bit of background on the system. So let me just exit full screen there. So Debbie has this great diagram that gives you a bit of framework here for the courts. And you see at the bottom here, this entry level, we have magisterial district courts. There are 509 of these throughout the Commonwealth. Their jurisdiction is at the hyper local level. The number of these courts in your area will depend on the population. These magisterial district judges handle disputes where the amount at issue is less than $12,000. If you've challenged a traffic ticket, you may have appeared before this court. They handle landlord-tenant matters, preliminary arraignments, just to name a few specific items. Above that, we have our courts of common pleas, and these judges have county-wide jurisdiction. Again, the number of judges in that county will vary depending on the population. Bradford County, where I grew up, we have 2 judges up there, and in Cumberland County, where I am now, there are 7. Philadelphia has quite a few more than that, so you get the idea. And common pleas court judges handle disputes over that $12,000 threshold. They handle family law matters, guardianships, they probate wills, they handle criminal trials, and even appeals from land use decisions by your local municipality. And we encourage you to check your local county's information for how many open seats there are in your specific county for this election and who is running in those races. Now, the appeals from the courts of common pleas typically go to one of 2 intermediate appellate courts in Pennsylvania. We have the Superior Court and the Commonwealth Court. Starting with the Superior Court, there are 15 judges that sit on the Superior Court. They're elected to 10-year terms. The Superior Court handles, as I noted, most appeals from the courts of common pleas, including civil, criminal, and family cases. And Pennsylvania's Superior Court is actually one of the busiest appellate courts in the country. We have 4 candidates in this election running for 2 open seats, and we'll be hearing from 3 of those candidates this evening. The other intermediate appellate court is the Commonwealth Court, where there are 9 seats. These are also 10-year terms. The Commonwealth Court hears certain appeals from the courts of common pleas, including those land use decisions. And they also hear direct appeals from decisions by administrative bodies, such as the Environmental Hearing Board or the Workers' Compensation Appeal Board. As a general matter, one way to describe the Commonwealth Court is it generally handles review of government decisions or matters where a government entity may be a party. And we have 2 candidates running for 1 open seat on that court, and we'll be hearing from both of them in a few minutes. And finally, Pennsylvania Supreme Court has 7 justices, also elected to 10-year terms. The Supreme Court is actually one of the oldest courts in North America, tracing its roots to 1684. It's the court of last resort for claims under Pennsylvania law. It has discretion over most of the cases it decides to take or not. Some are appeals by right. And in addition to the hearing appeals, the court has many administrative responsibilities with respect to rules of procedure, judicial conduct, overseeing attorney admissions, and the like. And for that court, we have 2 candidates running for 1 open seat, and we'll be hearing from both of those candidates later this evening. So with that, let's get to the substance of the evening, and we're going to start with the Commonwealth Court. If you tuned in the spring before the primary election, you know we started with Supreme Court, so we flipped that for this session to mix it up a bit. And so I'd like to welcome the candidates, Attorney Megan Martin and Judge Matt Wolf. Thanks again for joining us. As Debbie noted, we're going to take 90 seconds for introductions, and then the responses to questions, we'll ask that you limit them to about a minute. So I think we'll start with Judge Wolf. I think you were almost left out in the spring, so I decided we start with you today. So please take 90 seconds to introduce yourself and tell our attendees why you are running for Commonwealth Court.
Sure, thank you very much. So I am a 25-year trial attorney candidate. I was a civil rights trial attorney for 25 years. My practice focused on civil rights. I did other things. I also did appeals during those 25 years. I was elected to the bench, Philadelphia Municipal Court in 2017, and I've been a judge for the past 6 years. So I am in this race as the only candidate with trial experience, appellate experience, and judicial experience, a total of 31 years, in addition to which I am currently serving in the Pennsylvania Army National Guard. I spent 17 years as a Judge Advocate General with service in Iraq and Afghanistan, and I'm currently in the Pennsylvania Army National Guard as a Cavalry Scout Soldier. I just had drill this past weekend, training with the Pennsylvania State Police, and I bring to the table a record of public service, and I am a public servant. And I hope to get a seat on the Commonwealth Court so that I can continue to provide public service to the residents and citizens of Pennsylvania.
Thank you. Attorney Martin.
Thank you so much, Bridget. Thank you so much, Debbie. I'm delighted to be here. Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Megan Martin. I'm an attorney from Cumberland County, and I'm the Republican candidate for Commonwealth Court. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to be a judge for all the people of Pennsylvania. I'm going to be fair and impartial and keep politics out of my courtroom. I'm going to defend the rule of law and protect your constitutional rights and freedoms. I'm going to apply the law as it was written by our General Assembly. I'm not going to legislate from the bench. I will not be an activist judge. And finally, I'm going to be a Commonwealth Court who holds our government accountable, because government must follow the law as well as the people of Pennsylvania. And ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to bring my truly one-of-a-kind legal experience to our truly one-of-a-kind Commonwealth Court. The Commonwealth Court only hears Pennsylvania government cases. Well, I know Pennsylvania government. I'm the only attorney I know who has served in all three branches of our Pennsylvania state government and as a civilian attorney for the United States Navy. At the Navy, I was a litigator and a transactional lawyer. On the state side, I clerked for a judge. I served in the administrations of 2 of our Pennsylvania governors, and I spent the last 10 and a half years as the parliamentarian at our Pennsylvania State Senate. And this is very much a job that's very similar to being a judge. I had to keep politics out of my work, and I was unanimously elected by Republican and Democrat senators for that position 5 times. I'm running for all the right reasons, ladies and gentlemen. I'm not a politician. I took a leap of faith and quit my job in November to run full-time for the court. I'm traveling 5,000 miles every month, visiting all 67 counties because we need good judges. I'd be honored to earn your vote on November 7th. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And so I'll reverse order here. Attorney Martin, could you tell us perhaps something that the attendees might not know about the Commonwealth Court that you think is important for them to know?
Sure, Bridget, I think that's a wonderful question. I think that what people in Pennsylvania don't realize is that the Commonwealth Court is the court that's connected to the basic necessities of the lives of every single person all across Pennsylvania. When you get up in the morning and you turn on your lights or you turn on your faucet, that's the Commonwealth Court. If you have a utility issue, Commonwealth Court is going to resolve it. If you take your children or your grandchildren to school and you have an education issue or a school board issue, Commonwealth Court is going to resolve it. If you step into the voting booth and you have an election issue, Commonwealth Court is going to decide it. If you own a business, if you own a farm, if you have a zoning issue, if you have a government contracts issue, if you believe a law is unconstitutional, the Commonwealth Court is going to hear those issues and so many more. And I think that it is a very special court. It's a one-of-a-kind court. Most people don't realize there is no other court in the country like our Commonwealth Court, because it only hears government cases. It hears these local government cases and state government cases that have tremendous impact on people all across Pennsylvania. And so it's a very important court. It's a unique, one of a kind. And like I said earlier, I believe that my one of a kind experience understanding our government makes me the best candidate for our one of a kind Commonwealth Court.
Thank you. And Judge Wolf, same question for you, please.
Sure. Something unique about the Commonwealth Court is that it is the only court in the country that, as a result of the election in which Donald Trump lost, where a judge stopped the count of the vote related to the presidential election. There were 40, 50 lawsuits filed by Donald Trump's campaign throughout the country. And a Republican judge on the Commonwealth Court is the only judge in the country to have given him a win in that contest, in those contests, where that judge on the Commonwealth Court stopped the count. The Pennsylvania Supreme Court a few days later overturned that order and allowed the counts to proceed. But the Commonwealth Court is so important because it will maintain the integrity and rights of voters in Pennsylvania, and I would do that if I'm elected.
Thank you. And starting with Judge Wolf, could you tell us something that you worked on or been part of in your professional life that that you're particularly proud of?
Sure. I'm proud of my track record as a civil rights trial attorney. I focused towards the latter half of my career on representing women in workplace claims, hostile work environment, quid pro quo sexual harassment, wrongful termination, pregnancy discrimination. I also represented folks against the police for racially profiled stops and arrests. And I frequently took on powerful companies. So, you know, my track record as a civil rights attorney is, I'm very proud of that. I would have some of the biggest law firms in the Eastern Seaboard trying to defend the companies against the claims that I was making on behalf of clients. And I took cases to trial. I prosecuted appeals. I defended appeals. I'm very proud of my trial work and appellate work, in addition to my 6 years as a judge.
Thank you. And Attorney Martin, same question. I think she might be frozen. Give it 1 second. Attorney Martin, you seem frozen. Debbie, can you hear me? Okay.
Yeah, I can hear
Lost her.
you. Okay, hold on.
If you want to continue with me, I'm happy to, and then you can shift to her when she returns. Although then she won't have the benefit of hearing what I'm saying, so that might be unfair. But I'm certainly willing to wait this out.
Well, thank
Let-
you.
Let me,
We'll give her 1 moment here and see.
I just texted, but I haven't even heard that. Benefits and problems of the of Zoom.
Yeah. Well, we'll forge ahead here. I think everyone understands that this happens from time to time. So Judge Wolf, by now you've spent many months campaigning for the seat on the Commonwealth Court. And I was curious if I could give you a magic wand and you could change one thing about the election process, what would that be?
You know, it's interesting in other countries, I think in the UK in particular, they have a very short season for campaigning and they have a limitation on the amount of money, I believe, but their window is really small. And what that does is it compacts everything into a small window. For me, you know, I joined this race the day after the last general election. Judges who are sitting are not allowed to campaign while they're sitting judges until the day after the general election before the year in which they intend to run. So last year, the day after the election, I started running, campaigning, and I've been running ever since. A shorter window would have been interesting. A magic wand. If you're going to give it to me, I'm going to use it and say a shorter window for campaigning. But then it may prevent people from really getting to know you. So I'm not sure that I would use it.
Hi, Attorney Martin.
I'm sorry about that. We're having some technical difficulties at the event where I'm taking this call from. So 1,000 apologies, everybody.
No problem at all. It's part of the deal. Thank you for jumping back on so quickly.
Technology is wonderful when it works.
Exactly. So the question was, could you tell us something that you worked on or been a part of in your professional life that you're particularly proud of?
Sure. I have kind of a broad answer, and then I'll give you a more specific answer. I think that generally I'm incredibly proud of my nearly 30-year career of service. You know, I've had a legal career of service unlike any other. Like I stated earlier, I've had the privilege of serving in all 3 branches of our state government and the honor of my career serving as an attorney for the United States Navy. And so for me, it's always been important to do work that I find meaningful. And everybody finds meaning in their work in different ways. But for me, it's been serving the people of Pennsylvania and also the men and women who serve in our United States Navy. In terms of some substantive work that I'm really proud of, you know, at the Senate, I broke the glass ceiling by being the first and only woman to ever be the secretary parliamentarian of our Pennsylvania State Senate. So I'm incredibly proud of that. I have a 22-year-old daughter who thinks that's really amazing. And also, I'm proud of the judicial temperament that I exhibited for my 10.5 years of service at the Senate, because it's a job where I had to check my politics at the doors of the Capitol and fairly and impartially manage the legislative process. And to get and keep that job, I had to be elected by the senators, and I was unanimously elected 5 times. So I'm incredibly proud of my more than 10-year record of nonpartisanship that I can bring to the Commonwealth Court. On the federal side, working for the Navy, it was an honor serving all those men and women who so selflessly serve each and every one of us. And one of my biggest matters that I worked on for the Navy was a contract for something called the CWIS. It's a defense weapons system. It keeps our sailors safe. It's a large Gatling gun that's on our Navy vessels, and it keeps our sailors safe. And that was my contract for the Navy. I was the only lawyer on the contract team, and it was valued at nearly $250 million. At the time, it was the Navy's largest such contract. And I'm really proud that
Ms. Martin, your time is
Oh.
up. Sorry.
Okay, thank you. I'm proud of my role on that procurement. Thank you.
Thanks.
And we did move forward with just one question with Judge Wolf. So we'll turn that question to you now, Attorney Martin. So you spent a lot of time on the campaign trail for the seat on the Commonwealth Court. If I could give you a magic wand and you could change one thing about the election process, what would that be?
Oh my goodness. Well, I think it's unusual, I would say, that we have to run as a member of a particular political party for a nonpartisan job. So, but that said, I'm not sure that, for example, merit selection is any less political than a campaign. And I would say that that's something that should be put to the voters to decide. Let the people decide. I view everything through the lens, through the procedure lens from my parliamentary role at the Senate. And so if there were to be any kind of changes to the election process, it would be through the constitutional amendment process. So the General Assembly would need to put that forth and get the support of the people to make that kind of change. So I would say if the people wanted that kind of change, we would put it to them to make that decision. So, but all in all, I'm enjoying this process. I'm thoroughly enjoying myself. I love talking to people, hearing what's on their minds, and connecting with them and getting my message out to them and reassuring them, you know, that I'm going to be a judge for all the people of Pennsylvania and the kind of judge that they need and want and deserve. And I'm going to treat them fairly, and I'm going to honor the Constitution, that I'm going to have common sense, and that I'm going to keep politics out of the courtroom. So for me, I'm thoroughly enjoying this process. I'm not a politician. I've never run for public office before, but I quit my job to do this, and I'm all invested. And I am traveling a lot, 5,000 miles every month. I visited all 67 counties once, and I'm 66 counties into doing it again.
Thank you.
And I don't know if
Thank
my
you.
time is up because I can only see Bridget.
Yes.
I can only see Bridget
Yeah.
on my phone. So
Okay, I'll give you a
Oh.
signal. I'll give you a signal
Please
going
do.
forward. Yeah, apologize for that.
please do.
Okay, so Judge Wolf, this question, we'll start with you for this one. Voter participation, as Debbie noted at the outset, in statewide judicial elections is generally quite low. What role do you think judges have in encouraging Pennsylvanians to participate in judicial elections, and how do we more collectively encourage that participation?
I think that our role is to campaign and to get out there, do things like what we're doing right now, to let people know how important, for instance, the Commonwealth Court is and how it affects everybody deeply, from workers' comp to land use to voting rights to reproductive rights. It all goes through the Commonwealth Court. So candidates can campaign, and I've been across the state several times, and I work every day in court. So my ability to drop everything and run during the week is limited. So I'm going out in the evenings and on the weekend as a sitting judge. I can't just walk away from a courtroom full of people waiting for me. I had several trials today, for instance. So getting out and convincing people of what's at stake is what we need to do.
Thank you. Attorney Martin?
Thank you, Bridget. Likewise, I agree, getting out and meeting the voters and the people of Pennsylvania. I committed fully to this campaign when I left my position with the Senate last November. I made this a priority. I decided a couple of years ago that I was going to run for this position. And so I do have the ability to get out and travel. Like I said, I visited all 67 counties before the primary. And since the primary, I've been to 66 counties. I'm going to hit my 67th in a couple of days. I got rained out a couple weekends ago. But I think it's important. I've said from day one that it's important to get out into the communities across Pennsylvania and talk to the people and see what's on their mind, listen to them, and then to get my message out. And a huge component of my message has been an educational component. I explained to them the role of the Commonwealth Court, just as I did earlier, how important it is to them. I want them to understand that it is a court that is important to them. So I think talking to the people of Pennsylvania is our best way of doing that. And I'm enjoying that thoroughly, and encouraging their participation, for example, in forums just like this. Thank you.
And we'll start with Attorney Martin for this question. So I think, civility in government and in politics is sometimes in short supply. And sometimes, unfortunately, this can spill over into personal relationships. Wondering, how do you, both in your professional and personal lives, work to try to understand perspectives of folks with whom you might disagree?
That is a wonderful question, Bridget. And I would like to say from the outset, Matt and I have run a very positive campaign, and I'm proud of that. And I think that people are sick and tired of the vitriol and the hatred that's out there, and the complete lack of civility that is facing our country. And we are both trying to give the people of Pennsylvania something positive to vote for. And I think that's really an important component to this election. And I would say that just my nature in general is to be a consensus builder. And, I'm a kind and caring person, and I like to hear people and hear what they have to think. And I think that part of being a good judge is being a good listener and hearing the parties out. And, I'm the person, my husband says, when we're standing in line at Target, somebody will start to talk to me. And they tell me their whole life story. And then we'll get out in the parking lot, and they'll say, and my husband will say, "Oh my gosh, that lady just told you her whole life story standing in line at Target." And I said, "Well, I'm just a good listener." And I think if you're kind and you're caring and you're willing to hear people out and be tolerant, listen, I truly admire Justice Scalia and Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg. They were incredibly different in terms of their political beliefs and their judicial philosophies, but they were the best of friends. And they set an example for all of us to emulate.
Thank you. And Judge Wolf.
Sure. So I think in general, you don't have to engage with everybody who you disagree with. So I think respect includes knowing that the other person has a different point of view, maybe diametrically opposed to your own. And respect includes allowing them to have that without trying to forcibly, through conversation and engagement, change their mind. I will say that as a sitting judge, that I oversee disputes, and I've been doing it for 6 years. And being civil in court is really important to me, and maintaining decorum and respect. People get that from me by example. I've never raised my voice as a judge. And I expect them to treat each other, the attorneys or the opposing parties, the same way with respect. I think I've been successful at that, and I think I provided a role model to the attorneys.
Great, thank you both so much. I think that's all our time for the Commonwealth Court. I want to thank you both so much for being here again. And if you'd like to each take 30 seconds just to sort of wrap up and any closing remarks for the attendees, please go ahead. Judge Wolf, why don't you go ahead?
Okay, well, I would encourage everybody to encourage people to vote, regardless of what their position is. Certainly, I'd like to have Democrats and Republicans vote for me and unaffiliated voters. I am the only candidate with litigation experience for an appellate and trial court position. And I'm just going to use the last 10 seconds to say, go Phillies.
And go ahead, Attorney Martin.
Thank you, Bridget. Thank you all for having me. What I would say to the people of Pennsylvania is that I am the best choice for Commonwealth Court. I have one-of-a-kind experience for our one-of-a-kind Commonwealth Court, and I will bring that to the Commonwealth Court from day one. I'll bring a judicial philosophy that all the people of Pennsylvania can trust. I've worked very hard to build out a broad-based coalition of support. I have support from Republicans, from Democrats, from independents, from business, from labor, from law enforcement. I'm the kind of judge that the people of Pennsylvania can trust, and I will be a wonderful judge on our Pennsylvania Commonwealth Court. I would be honored to earn their votes. Please follow me on social media, Megan Martin for PA, and I'd be honored to earn your votes on November 7th. And please tell your friends. Thank you.
Great, thank you again to both of you. We're going to move on now to the Superior Court. And we have 3 candidates running. We have 4 candidates running for 2 open seats. As Debbie mentioned at the beginning, Attorney Battista was not able to join us this evening. So, but we do have Attorney Beck, Judge Lane, and Judge Smail. I believe I've seen everybody on the screen. And so we'll get ready to get started here. And we're going to take 90 seconds each for introductions, and then we'll do 1 minute for responses to the questions. And Debbie has placards as cues for how much time you have remaining. So please look for those as you're responding. So we'll go in alphabetical order here to start. So Attorney Beck, if you're ready, please take 90 seconds to introduce yourself to our attendees and let them know why you are running for Superior Court.
Thank you very much. Good evening, everybody. My name is Jill Beck. I'm from Allegheny County running for Superior Court. Superior Court is a court of appeals that hears criminal, civil, family, juvenile, and orphans court matters. Those are all areas where I have practiced as an attorney. I've practiced in the Superior Court itself as well as appellate courts across the country. And I spent 10 years clerking on these courts, 6 on the Superior Court, 4 on the Supreme Court, where I drafted over 500 of the very decisions that I will get to decide if elected to the court. So I know the court, I know the law, I'm passionate about the work the court does. I'm also passionate about the people who come before the court. I've largely dedicated my career to public service and helping vulnerable and underserved members of our population. I started my legal career nearly 20 years ago representing child abuse and neglect victims. And after my clerkship, I joined a private law firm, Blank Rome, in their Pittsburgh office, where in addition to my commercial litigation and appellate practice, I chaired the Pittsburgh office pro bono department that allowed me to help victims of domestic violence, victims of racial discrimination, illegal gun sales and wage theft, members of our LGBTQ community, veterans, people facing housing insecurity, to work on election protection matters, and to just generally help people without money get the same rights and protections as people with means. That is what this court is about, a fair and even playing field for every person and entity that comes before the court. I will also tell you I've been highly recommended to be a Superior Court judge by both the Pennsylvania Bar Association and the Allegheny County Bar Association, and I look forward to the questions this evening. Thank you.
Thanks so much. Judge Lane, please go ahead.
Hi, good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for having us on to talk about the importance of the court. I'm really excited about that. My name is Timika Lane, and I was elected to the Court of Common Pleas in 2013. But before that, just a little brief overview about who I am. I was born into a union family. My dad was a Marine. My mother is a retired police detective. And my grandmother worked in a cafeteria, and she had such an influence on me. And they instilled such a strong work ethic in me, but a sense of service as well. And that's how I've lived my life, from a 7th grade social studies public school teacher to being a trial attorney representing adults and juveniles who couldn't afford representation, as well as abused and neglected children as a child advocate. I served as a civil arbiter. I worked in Harrisburg as the executive director of the state government committee. But most importantly, once I got on the bench, I hit the ground running because I had so much experience with jury trials as well as bench trials with the judge. I was the presiding judge over human trafficking cases, and I was chosen to be one of 5 judges who also supervised and dealt with rape cases, sexual assault cases, domestic violence, really horrific, heinous crimes. That's what I did. I'm also now in the civil division handling civil protection cases. I have been highly recommended by both the Philadelphia Bar as well as the Pennsylvania Bar Association, and I have dedicated my life to service. And I feel like now I had the best of both worlds. I used to be a public school teacher. Now I can go into public schools with the advancing civics education with the Philadelphia Bar Association and teach civics to our kids. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Judge Lane. And Judge Smail, please go ahead.
Okay, thank you. I'm Judge Harry Smail from Westmoreland County. I'm a sitting judge in the Complex Civil Litigation Division. I've been there for nearly 10 years. My history is I'm a Grove City College graduate and also a Duquesne University School of Law night program graduate. I was 8 years a probation and parole officer while in law school at night at Duquesne. I am very self-driven and self-made. I opened my own practice thereafter. I have 26 years of litigation experience with the combined almost 10 years on the bench. I was a family law judge for 3 years and handled all matters in family law, equitable distribution, domestic support, custody, divorce, PFAs, indirect criminal contempts, children youth services, and guardianships of children. I moved over to the Complex Civil Litigation Division and handle medical malpractice, personal injury, complex municipal law actions, as well as a variety of gas and oil cases that we have here in Western Pennsylvania. Having had that experience and that background, I have a very transparent record. I've had over 100 appeals from decisions made, no reversals. And that being said, I can write for the court, have litigated before the court on the Superior Court level. I was a complex Criminal Justice Act advocate for the Federal Public Defender's Office, also did conflicts counsel for all the public defender area counties around Western Pennsylvania. And I've done that my entire career as well. So I have the background in the criminal arena, the family arena, and the complex civil arena. And therefore I am ready day one to take on the responsibilities, having done over hundreds of jury trials to verdict, as well as thousands of evidentiary hearings and bench trials. Thank you.
Thank you very much. For the next question, we'll start with Judge Lane. What is something that you would like Pennsylvanians to know about the Superior Court that they may not already know? Looks like we have a
Thank you.
frozen
That's
go
a great
ahead.
question, because a lot of people are not as familiar with our appellate courts. And the Superior Court that is with criminal matters, civil matters, family matters, wills. Can you hear me okay? No? No?
I think you're back now. You were a little bit choppy there, but go ahead. Feel free to start over, please.
Yeah.
Okay. So the Superior Court is like the people's court. That's the court that people are with. They deal with civil matters, criminal matters, family matters, wills and estates. And that's often the final stop for most people in Pennsylvania, because the Supreme Court simply won't hear their case. The Superior Court, you Court of Common Pleas, where I sit. And what most people don't realize is that the Superior Court is the busiest court in the nation. Before the pandemic, they did over 8,000 cases a year. Now they're around 5,500 to 7,000. Compared with our Supreme Court, who will hear 100 to 150 cases, because the Supreme Court is more of a policy court, as opposed to the Superior Court, which is an error correcting court. So it's so important because more than likely, that's where your appeal is going to stop, at the Superior Court. 98% of the cases stop here.
Thank you. And Judge Smail, the same question for you. What's something you would like Pennsylvanians to know about the Superior Court that they may not already know?
Well, the Superior Court was established in 1895, and it was one of the first intermediate courts in the country. Our Supreme Court was the original court at 1722, and it has over 300 years. That being said, the Superior Court is a appellate court of error correction and of right. You have the right, any decision made by the Common Pleas Court or a court below, to file an appeal. What people don't understand is oftentimes the Superior Court is your last stop. As Judge Lane had indicated, the Supreme Court is a court of discretion and only takes a certain percentage of cases and hears those. So therefore, the outcomes in the Superior Court oftentimes are the last day of court that you have without any appeal thereafter, if it's denied on what's called aliquotter or petition to the Supreme Court. Therefore, when you file your action in the Superior Court, it's imperative that you have experienced judges that do not legislate from the bench, uphold the rule of law, and apply that law, that exercise integrity, impartiality, legal courage, and exhibit good temperament so that they can give everybody the respect and empathy they deserve, plus an outcome that is just and equitable.
Thank you. And Attorney Beck, same question for you, please.
I think a lot of people don't know exactly how the Superior Court works. I think our judicial system is sometimes unnecessarily confusing. And I also don't think people fully understand how much these decisions can affect them, even when they're not the litigants involved in these cases. So when somebody loses a trial, they do have an automatic right to challenge that decision up to the Superior Court. They would raise specific claims of error that the Superior Court would review. Each case gets no less than 3 judges assigned to it as the panel, and it can either be submitted on paper or the attorneys can argue. The Superior Court does not retry the case. We look at what happened below on paper. We read the transcripts. We look at the evidence, whatever was filed of record, to make sure that what happened below and what the judge found was supported by the record. And then we research the law to ensure that the law was faithfully and correctly applied. It is an important role because it's dealing with somebody's right to be free from incarceration, the right to parent their children, the right to make healthcare decisions, the right to their wealth, their safety, their inheritance, and their home. These are decisions that affect everyday Pennsylvanians.
Thank you all. For the next question, Judge Smail, we'll start with you. And it'll be the same question, of course, for the others. And, you know, we all bring our own past experiences. We have our everyday lives. We bring it to our workplace, and we often see things through the lens of those past experiences. And I'm curious how each of you work to see things through the eyes of folks who have had different experiences from you, and as well as those with whom you might have a disagreement.
Well, to be a good judge, I believe that you must leave your personal views and emotion at the courtroom door. You would bring in your good common sense, your horse sense, and apply your practical experience, but you are there to enforce the statutory law, the precedent law, determine whether a case is not constitutional by the U.S. Constitution or the PA Commonwealth Constitution, which is a much more liberal analysis. In doing that, though, you must be sympathetic and offer respect and empathy to those that come before you, especially in the family court area where it's good people on their worst day, as they may be losing some property, custody of their children, their relationship, other things. You have to be somewhat understanding as to those circumstances. When you have a defendant, you got to be leery of the fact that this affects their liberty, interest, and their most fundamental rights. When you have complex civil litigation, oftentimes it's small businesses that are losing to big corporations or individuals losing to each other. Maybe it's a boundary dispute in property. That comes with practical experience from being on the bench and having the experience with nearly 10 years on the bench to understand the decorum necessary in the courtroom to render a fair decision but in a environment of equity, fairness, and there is no bias one way or another to those that come before the court, because you must apply the law equally to all.
Thank you. And Attorney Beck, please go ahead.
I think it's critical that you have people with different lived experiences than yours in your chambers. That's why I am committed to hiring a diverse staff so that we can really, branch out a lot more outside of just my own personal comfort zone, my own personal biases. The other thing that I think is really critical is implicit bias training. When I made the decision to run, I took it upon myself to enroll in an implicit bias class. It was a full day course. Because, just as it says in its name, it's implicit. These are not overtly biased people that are coming out there, but it's people who have, the normal things that sort of infect and affect our thinking. And so I think it's very important for everyone in a position of decision-making power that can make these decisions that really affect people's lives, that they have that type of training so that you can broaden your horizon, recognize when you have a bias, and try to work to overcome it.
Thank you. And Judge Lane, same question for you, please.
Can you just repeat it for me? My internet is a little choppy.
Sure, no problem. And if you
okay though?
Yeah, I can hear you. If you
No.
want to turn off your camera and see if the sound is better, we could try that. Feel
Can you
free.
hear me?
I can hear you, yes. Yeah.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Can you repeat the question? Because my
Yes.
internet is so bad. I'm going to probably log in onto my phone to try to see if it's better.
Okay. I'll go
what's
ahead
the
and
question
repeat.
again?
Sure. So we all bring our past experiences to our everyday lives and to our workplace, and we often see things through the lens of those experiences. And I'm wondering how you work to see things through the eyes of others that have had different experiences, or perhaps for seeing things through the eyes of folks with whom you might disagree.
I think that is a wonderful, wonderful question. And I appreciate that, because we do bring our lived experience, because that's just who we are. I was a public school teacher. I represented abused and neglected children. I've done a lot in the community. But what I think is important is that when they get before you, you have to make sure with dignity and respect. And I think compassion is also appropriate when necessary. I've dealt with some really heinous cases. People had horrific things done to them. And coming into a courtroom is very scary and intimidating. And it was my goal to make sure that they knew my courtroom was a safe space to tell their truth. And I know that also Jill had mentioned implicit bias training. As a bench, follow the law and we make sure that everyone receives a fair trial. And I know I adhere to that every day, and that is my goal.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And so we'll start with Attorney Beck for this question. You've been campaigning for some time now. If I could give you a magic wand and you could change one thing about the election process, what would that be?
The two things that I really dislike the most about this process is the politics and the money. If there was a way to take the politics and the money out of the run, I think that would be ideal. I have traveled to all 67 counties, most of them more than once. I have met with people across the Commonwealth from every corner and stretch, and I think that's been helpful. It will make me a better judge. I also think it's just been very nice. I've gotten to see places and meet people I would have never had the opportunity to meet and to be. But I think having us run on a partisan ticket and requiring the raising and spending of more money than many of us, including myself, have ever seen personally. I wish that was not the way that this system worked. I wish there was a way that we could do this elected process, meet voters, get in front of people without the politics or the money.
Thank you. Judge Lane, we can see you and hopefully you can hear us now.
Thank you.
Can
you hear me?
Yes, it is clearer. I will hold up, I don't know if you can see Debbie's placard, so I'll give you the signals from here. With
Thank you.
regard to the amount of time left. But the question was, if I could give you a magic wand and you could change one thing about the election process, what would that be?
I think that I heard some of what Jill said, and I have to agree with that, that unfortunately it's partisan, it's very expensive to run. And look, I came from a home where, you know, we were working class people. I didn't come from money, and it's very expensive to go out here. But I do love traveling across the Commonwealth and visiting the 67 counties and meeting people, because I realize that we all want the same things. We all want a fair trial. We all want to make sure that when we go in, we're treated with dignity and respect, and that the law is applied. And that part I love. But as far as the partisanship and the obscene amounts of money that go into a statewide judicial race, that's tough. And especially as a sitting judge, you know, it's a lot that I can't say, and I'm restricted from saying, that unfortunately people would like to talk about, but we're just not allowed to do so. So I think they would be the things that I would point out as my concern. So thank you.
Thank you. And same question for you, Judge Smail.
Thank you. What I have seen is a difference, because when I was appointed in 2014 and then won both sides of the ticket, Democrat and Republican, in the primary of 2015, there was a much more available discourse between the two parties and individuals from both parties, as well as independents, in that they were much more civil to each other in discussion, having open debate, and then coming to a conclusion by compromise or discussion. It's a matter of, as being a sitting judge, they need to understand that I've not been involved in politics for nearly 10 years, so I'm not a politician per se that adheres to their partisan postures, but the questions often come to us as sitting judges that run in these races, that we have to answer their question, even though we are not permitted to under the judicial conduct rules. So we have to convey that to people so that they understand, as sitting judges, must be fair and equitable. Thank you.
Thank you. I think we have time for one more question. And for this one, we'll start with you, Judge Lane. There are some people who are skeptical of the justice system, who say the system is broken. Do you agree with that? And if not, what do you say to the person to encourage them to have faith in the system?
That's a great question, because sometimes on a campaign trail, you do hear that. You do hear that people are discouraged and people don't think that justice is for them. And I will tell you this, that we are not a perfect system. And I say we because I'm a sitting judge. And I know that we have constant training, judicial training, to make sure that we get it right. We research and prep our cases before trial to make sure that when we go out there, we're as prepared as we can be on those issues. And look, we are imperfect people, but we do our best every day to get it right. And I know that, and one thing about Pennsylvania is that we are a Commonwealth that actually elects our judges. So we can actually have a say as to the people who we want to be on the bench hearing our cases, and to make sure that they have, you know, a varied life experience, varied practice, and to make sure that everyone's voice is heard. And that much I appreciate. But look, we are a work in progress, but you know, although we're not perfect, I think that we are getting better every day. So thank you.
Thank you. And I believe Judge Smail, you're up next.
Yes, I actually believe that the system is not nearly as in disrepair as some may perceive it to be. As long as the people that get elected understand they should not legislate from the bench or act as another branch of government or act in a way like executive decree, and that they adhere to the law, enforce the law, they know the law, they should understand the law, they should avoid any appearance of impropriety, they should be good stewards of discretion, they should always exemplify good temperament and treat everybody with courtesy, respect, and tact. They should have the legal courage to make a timely decision, so justice is not delayed, because it is denied then for lots of people. And that people that are elected to the bench must use and exercise integrity and impartiality. That being said, I believe the system And the people that are candidates and often are elected in Pennsylvania are those who earnestly try to earn that position. And I don't believe we have nearly as bad a problem in the separate branch of government as some people may articulate. Thank you.
Thank you. And Attorney Beck, please go ahead.
Our system of justice is a blanket system designed to address individualized needs. Criminal justice system, child dependency system, public welfare, custody. I mean, every single case that falls under these categories have one set of laws that apply to it. And certainly, I'm sure people feel that they are not heard. People feel that they are not treated fairly, and they feel like their facts, their needs are not being met by the system. And what I say to that is, as Judge Lane said, this is why it's a good thing that we elect judges here, because what we have is the individuals who will take the time and put in the effort and the energy to ensure that every single case gets treated with the amount of respect and time that is required to ensure that justice is served. I think that each judge has it on their shoulders and the huge responsibility to ensure that these individualized needs are addressed, despite the fact that it is such a blanket system.
Okay, thank you so much. I think we'll take one more round, just 30 seconds each to sort of sum up and one last word to the attendees this evening. And Judge Smail, we'll start with you.
Thank you. I would ask that everybody viewing tonight have faith in the third branch of government, its independence. I believe that it's critical, and it will be critical in the upcoming years, in making civility come back to our society and making everybody appreciate each other much more. And I think it's the quality of people that you elect. Please research us. Please look at my transparency and my record and give that some consideration, because I already serve Westmoreland County, and I would like to serve all 13 million citizens of the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania through the Superior Court. And I appreciate your opportunity to speak to the crowd. Thank you again.
Thank you. And Attorney Beck.
Thank you very much, and thank you for having me. I agree, researching your candidates is critical. It's unfortunate that in these odd year elections that we typically will get a 30% turnout. And this is a third co-equal branch of government that has great impact on your lives, whether you're the litigants involved in the case or not. And you want to make sure that the people that you are going to be voting for will serve the interests of justice and will apply the law fairly and equally to everyone. I would ask that you please visit my website, jillbeck.com. You can follow us on social media. All handles are @electjillbeck. And I would love for you to consider voting for me in your mail-in ballot or on November 7th. Thank you.
Thank you. And finally, Judge Lane.
Thank you so much. I just want to agree that it's so important that you look and you research judges, because your vote and your voice matters. And we want to be heard. And that's me as a citizen. And look, I've had the experience of decades of legal experience. I'm trusted, I'm tested, I'm experienced as a lawyer as well as a judge. I've been highly recommended, I told you, by the Bar Association in Philadelphia and Pennsylvania. And that means that they looked at my record, they looked at the opinions that I write, they talked to people who appeared before me and people who appeared against me, and my temperament. Judges matter. And I will drop my Judge Lane for forpa.com in the chat. That's my website. Thank you so much.
Thank you all. You're all wonderful candidates. It's going to be a tough decision, I'm sure, for the voters in 2 weeks. Thank you again for your time. We so appreciate it. So now we will move on to the Supreme Court of Pennsylvania. And as I noted earlier, we have two candidates running for one open seat. I see Judge McCaffery has joined us.
Yeah, I don't see Judge Carluccio.
Carluccio is planning to. I'm not seeing her yet. But I think we will.
We're just getting set up.
Oh, great. Okay, wonderful. Thank you.
Thank you. Sorry about that.
No problem. No problem.
Came in as me.
There we go. Thank you.
Hi there. So we have been, if you will recall from the spring session, taking the same approach where Debbie has We're going to do 90 seconds for introductions and opening remarks, and then we'll do a minute for responses to each question. Debbie has placards. I'm not sure if you'll be able to see them. Debbie, do you want to? Can you all see Debbie? If not, I'll just hold up. We'll have a 15-second and then a stop. Just for the to keep things moving along. We've got to get everyone out of here for the game 7. So we'll start with Judge Carluccio. Please take 90 seconds to introduce yourself and tell the attendees why you are running for the Supreme Court.
Thank you. I'm Carolyn Carluccio, and right now I'm the president judge in Montgomery County, the 3rd largest and busiest county in the Commonwealth. And I'm running for the Supreme Court for 3 reasons, really. The first one is I want to bring balance to the court. Right now, there are 5 seats that are considered Democratic seats and 2 that are considered Republican. And I think whether you're Republican or Democrat or independent, you can agree that's not balance. I also have balance in my background with being a federal prosecutor and a chief public defender. I'm also running to bring common sense to the court. And finally, and probably most importantly, I'm running because there is no court in this Commonwealth where politics belongs. I'm not a politician. I've never been a politician, and I don't plan on bringing that with me. My personal and political beliefs do not belong on the bench. As I said, I'm the first female president judge in Montgomery County, and I'm really proud of the fact more Democratic judges than Republicans. They all elected me unanimously, and they did that because they understand that I understand the issues and I can handle whatever was going on in our county at the time, which were huge backlogs, and I cleaned those up very quickly. I also was a federal prosecutor for 9 years. I was the first female chief public defender, first female chief deputy solicitor representing all 51 counties. And I was the president of my 2,000-member bar association. And right now I'm the president of the State Trial Judges Conference. I think I've demonstrated I have the legal knowledge and the administrative and the supervisory skills that it takes to be on the Pennsylvania Supreme Court. It's not just about hearing cases, it's also supervising the judges in the Commonwealth. Thank you.
Thank
I couldn't
you.
say that fine. I saw it come up, but
Yeah. And Judge McCaffery, please go ahead.
Good evening, everybody. Before I get started, I just wanted to take a moment on personal privilege, and I wanted to express my condolences. This morning, I spent the entire morning at the funeral for Philadelphia police officer Richard Mendez, who was murdered in the line of duty. I attended the church services today, and I wanted to express my condolences to the Mendez family, his daughter Mia, who gave a heartbreaking speech at the funeral today, as well as all the members of the Philadelphia Police Department for their loss and the citizens of Philadelphia for the loss, because I would be remiss if I didn't start off by expressing my deep felt condolences to the family and to the family of the Philadelphia Police Department. So for those of you who don't know me by way of background, I'm Judge Dan McCaffery. I'm currently sitting on the Pennsylvania Superior Court. I am the son of Irish immigrants, born and raised in Philadelphia. I attended Father Judge High School in Northeast Philadelphia. Upon my graduation from high school, I enlisted to serve in the United States Army. I am currently the only veteran serving on Pennsylvania's appellate courts. I was lucky enough to be one of 40 soldiers worldwide to be selected to attend the United States Military Academy at West Point Prep School. I attended West Point Prep before I was honorably discharged. I attended Temple University and Temple Law School on a veteran scholarship while serving in the United States Army Reserve. Upon my graduation, I accepted a position with the Philadelphia District Attorney's Office as a prosecutor. I quickly rose into the Major Trials Unit. My last 2 years in the DA's office were as what's called the SIU Special Investigations Unit Prosecutor of Major Trials, which means the high-profile cases. I tried 60 or 70 jury trials and a couple thousand bench trials during my time. And then I went on to private practice, and now I'm a candidate for the Supreme Court. So I see the stop sign, and I'll stop.
Thanks so much. And so for this next question, we'll just, alternate, take turns, and who's going first. Judge McCaffery, we'll start with you. It's so common in the news articles about this race. Within the first 2 or 3 sentences, it says that, the Pennsylvania Supreme Court currently has 4 Democrats and 2 Republicans. And, often attorneys will, before a case even starts, they sort of count the votes. What do you say to people to convince them that you won't just be a number to be placed on one side of the ledger or the other, when there just seems to be such a strong assumption in advance about how judges will rule on a case?
Pretty simple, values and experience. I've got 32 years of combined legal and judicial experience. I've been on both sides of the aisles as a prosecutor and a defense attorney. And when I tell people, when people want to know what kind of justice I'm going to be on the Pennsylvania Supreme Court, I tell them pretty simply. If you want to know what kind of judge or justice I'm going to be, take a look at what kind of judge I've been. I've spent 10 years as a trial judge and as an appellate court judge. I've written over 600 opinions. I've participated in several thousand decisions on the Pennsylvania Superior Court. As I've told people in the past, and I will continue to tell people, politics is part of the process of being elected. However, it's not part of the job. When you become elected as a judge, you check your registration, your party registration at the door. There's no Democrat or Republican way to decide a case. If you take a look at all of my cases, you will find that I have rendered each and every decision in a nonpartisan manner. I have been lauded for my clear, concise, and consistent opinions throughout my entire career.
Thank you. And Judge Carluccio, please go ahead.
Thank you. I think, well, we've both been highly recommended by the Bar Association. I think that speaks volumes because it is a thorough process, but I've never put my personal or political opinions out in the public. They're not there because they don't belong there. Nobody should know how I feel or think because none of that ever comes with me when I go to the bench. I've been on the bench for 14 years and never once has political or personal opinions come with me to that bench. I put on the black robe and they just don't go with me. I think you can look at my record. My record speaks for itself. I have thrived in both Republican and Democratic circles. I have more Democrats that have elected me to be the president judge in my county than Republicans. I also have thrived because Republicans and Democrats chose me to be the president of our 2,000 member Bar Association. And additionally, just in July, I was chosen by all the state trial judges, Republicans and Democrats, again, to be the face of that organization and to be the president of that organization. They clearly would not be doing that if I were political or partisan. It is not part of what I do. Thank you.
Thank you. And starting with Judge Carluccio, you both referenced your records. Is there a particular case or a decision of which you're most proud of during your time as a judge?
So it's really hard to pick a particular case or something because there are so many, because 14 years, you can really accumulate a lot. But I'm going to tell you that even though I've handled some really difficult cases in both the civil and criminal realm, I think I am most proud of my work in the family division. I was the administrative judge, which means I was in charge of the family division for 4 years. I was in charge of that division during the pandemic. That was the only division in our courts that stayed open and working every single day. So those cases are the ones that impact the people the most. Those are the cases where I see the real effect of what I can accomplish on the families. And I think that that is where the biggest impact can be made. That's where I've had the most emotional decisions to make. And I'm really proud of what I've done in that division. Thanks.
Thank you. And Judge McCaffery.
I've answered this question several times. I've long prided myself on paying close and careful attention to every matter that I've ever handled. And that includes both as an attorney and as a trial judge and as an appellate court judge. One of the pieces of advice that stuck with me when I left the DA's office and entered into private practice was one of my partners handed me a file and I tried. It was a small claims court and had coming out of the DA's office. I frankly probably thought I was too good to be trying small claims cases. And when I got back from the court that day, I handed the file over and my partner said that he had received a phone call from the client who was not happy with the way I handled the case, despite the fact that I won it. And he reminded me that nobody comes to court voluntarily or willingly. Usually it's the worst case or worst day of that person's life. And you have to handle every case as it's the most important case in the world for that particular client. And that's something I took with me throughout my career as both an attorney and as both a judge. So I think when you start looking at people's backgrounds, it's not just one single case. You have to take a look at their body of work. And I think I've got 32 years of combined legal and judicial experience that speaks for my qualifications.
Thank you. And I asked this question a little bit earlier with the Superior Court and the Commonwealth Court candidates. And starting with Judge McCaffery, if you've been campaigning for some time now, if you could wave a magic wand and change one thing about the judicial election process, what would that be?
Just one thing?
Well, feel free to elaborate. You have a minute.
I'll echo what everybody's going to say, which is the negativity and the money that comes into these campaigns. Carolyn and I have spoken about this privately and kind of publicly. It's the negative kind of campaigning by these independent third-party groups is really demeaning, both personally and professionally. I've said this beforehand. Regardless of who wins this election, these elections are really about the integrity of the court. We need to kind of reinforce in the public that the courts are unbiased, they're fair, and they're impartial. And as you alluded to beforehand, we're not partisan politicians. We render decisions based upon the law and based upon the facts that come up. But for reasons that are beyond our control, there's a lot of money that's come into these races and a lot of negativity that impacts both Carolyn and myself. It's not her fault. It's not my fault. It's just sad that that's part of the process now. And Harry Smail mentioned it earlier. We've become very partisan over the last 5 or 6 years, and that never happened historically.
Thank you. And Judge Carluccio, please go ahead.
I have to agree completely. It's the negativity. I have to say that in some ways, I think I was naive politically when I got involved in this because I'm not political. I knew it'd be difficult. I just didn't expect the personal attacks that really are lies. And I didn't think people could lie and get away with it. That shows my naivety, but that part of it has been a real blow to me. But in the process, there's a lot, we need to be focusing on who has the highest integrity, who's got the experience, who's got the demeanor that should be on the court. That's what we should be focusing on and not the other things. We both have a lot of experience. We're both well over 30 years of experience, and we've succeeded in every arena. I mean, there's not an arena I have not succeeded in. I strive to do the best all the time. And that's what the public needs to know, is that I will do the right thing every single time, no matter what. And that's it. Thank you.
Thank you both. So as I noted in the introduction to this program, the Supreme Court hears cases arising from all corners of our legal system here in Pennsylvania as the court of last resort. And you both have extensive experience, but I'm curious if there's anything in your mind where you think the learning curve might actually be the steepest for you, what area of law or perhaps a task or responsibility unique to the Supreme Court might come to mind. Judge Carluccio, we'll start with you.
I feel like I'm ready to hit the ground running. I've handled every kind of case that's going to appear up there. I've also sat in an appellate position when it comes to civil service appeals. I've sat there for zoning hearings, and there's a lot of things that come before the Court of Common Pleas that fit that role. I also have a unique experience in the fact that I'm president judge of a very large county, and in that role, I do the supervisory administrative authority over the 24 judges on my bench and the 30 magisterial district judges, including all of our treatment courts. I've innovated programs, which is the exact same thing the Supreme Court does. They have to have administrative authority over all the courts in the Commonwealth. And I'm already doing that. I'm already doing innovative programs. I'm already addressing the issues that face us on a daily basis. So I feel like I'm ready to handle anything.
Thank you. And Judge McCaffery, please go ahead.
Yeah, what I will tell your listeners and your viewers out there is that there's really a world of difference between trial work and appellate court. And frankly, it's something I didn't realize until I actually joined the appellate court. I spent 22 years as a trial attorney and as a trial judge. I knew my way around the courtroom like the back of my hand. Trial judges, your job is to be fair. Your job is to be impartial, is to apply the rules of evidence, the rules of civil procedure, the rules of criminal procedure, and allow each individual side to come up with a fair opportunity to present their case. I practiced extensively in appellate litigation, but one thing that I wasn't prepared for when I went to the Superior Court is the difference between appellate work and the standard of review in appellate work as opposed to the trial courts. Appellate judges, we're an error-correcting court in the Superior Court. I think there's a real reason that 6 of the 7 justices on the Pennsylvania Supreme Court have all been appellate court judges, because you're running for the state's highest appellate court. And if don't have appellate court experience, I think it's a world of difference. I'm not saying it can't be done, and I'm not saying Carolyn won't do a wonderful job, but I am saying the experience as an appellate court judge really makes a difference, to me anyway.
Thank you both. So for Judge McCaffery to start, we all bring our life experiences with us every day. We often see things through a lens that is colored by those experiences. We're all human beings. And And I'm curious, how do you work to see things through the perspective of someone with whom you disagree, either in the courtroom or outside the courtroom, with folks who might have a different lived experience?
You listen to them. When I was a trial court judge, I tell everybody it's kind of funny. When people used to walk into my courtroom, there was on my bench, there was a sign right next to my name, and it said, "Be kind." People used to look at that all the time, and they thought it was attorneys would come in or witnesses would come in, and they would look at the sign and they thought I was directing it to them, but really I was directing it to myself. If you're kind to people that come into a courtroom and you treat everybody with dignity and you treat everybody with respect, and you take the opportunity to listen to them and make sure every voice is heard in your courtroom, even where a party loses a case, they usually come away feeling that they've been heard and they feel respected. They feel better about the system. And ultimately, that was always my goal when I was in a courtroom, to make everybody understand that they had a full and fair opportunity to present their case or present their defense. And I do the same thing on the appellate court. The Superior Court right now, there's 14 judges, 7 Democrats, 7 Republicans. I often sit with people with very, very different political experience, political beliefs, and lived experiences, and you listen to people. I'm always been very collegial with my colleagues, and I believe in building consensus where possible. And you can disagree with people without being disagreeable, and that's kind of always been my philosophy.
Thank you. And Judge Carluccio, same question for you.
So you talk about life experiences. I was raised by a first-generation Italian and a very strong Irish mother. So if you guys have any of that kind of background, you know that you were raised with rules and you were raised with a lot of empathy and a lot of feeling, a lot of emotion. And that's really where I come from. And also being a federal prosecutor and then a chief public defender, I understand issues. And I went from protecting the community to also then as chief public defender. That position allowed me to advocate for the rights of individuals who come from very different backgrounds than maybe I did and have different circumstances surrounding them. But I understood that they all had to have access to justice. And I understood that their issues were just as important as anybody else's issues. As president judge, I work over 24 judges that come from very different backgrounds, but I'm able to navigate that. For 14 years, I've put all of my personal opinions aside because they really are irrelevant to my job. I've navigated in worlds that are very different than the one I was raised in, but I've managed to fit in with everyone. It's part of my personality. It's part of who I am. Anyone that knows me knows that I can pretty much get along with anyone, and I love people. I treat everybody exactly the same. So I'm going to take that with me.
Thank you. And starting with Judge Carluccio for this question, as you know, courts are generally expected to apply or sometimes build upon previous decisions, prior precedent when making their decisions. What is your view on the role of longstanding precedent?
Look, we don't have a judicial system without precedent. It is so important that we abide by that precedent. What that does is it allows people to have faith in the system, to know what to expect, to have consistency. Now, I'm not saying that there are times if the law is clearly wrong, then we do have to overturn that precedent, and they do have the right to do that. But that's a pretty high bar to make. So I think legal precedent is it's part of this whole system, and it works.
Thank you. And Judge McCaffery?
Yeah, stare decisis and precedent are critical. Clients, lawyers, and the public have a right to know what the law is and to conform their conduct accordingly. I think it's critically important that precedent always be followed under every circumstance. In the event and to the extent that precedent is no longer applicable for one reason or another because of changing societal circumstances or change in the law, I think it's important for the court to say so and say why precedent's being disregarded and what changes have been made to cause that change in the precedent.
Thank you both. And starting with Judge McCaffery, could you tell us a little bit more about you and outside the courtroom and how you are involved in your local community?
Sure. As Carolyn mentioned, I'm born and raised Northeast Philadelphia. My mother and father are Irish immigrants. I have served in the United States Army. I am very active in the community. I've actually coached a local high school rugby team for 20 years. I had to stop in 2019 when I ran for Superior Court and the team folded because I wasn't no longer coaching. That kind of broke my heart. In addition, I've coached girls basketball. I coached girls softball when my daughters were younger. I did that for about 10 years. That was wonderful. I'm very active in my church. I'm active in local charitable organizations, including hospice shelters in town. feeding the homeless. I'm a member of the AOH, which is the Ancient Order of Hibernians. We have a homeless advocacy project we're involved in every single year. That's pretty much on a social level or a charitable level. On a professional level, I routinely teach at area law schools and colleges. I teach on criminal law, appellate practice and procedure. And when I say I teach, I don't teach a course, I actually lecture. I've lectured at Temple Law, I've lectured at Duquesne Law School, various law schools. CLEs, I teach on appellate practice and procedure. I serve on the Court of Judicial Discipline. So I also teach on recusal and judicial ethics. Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't see the stop sign.
That's okay.
No worries. I can keep going if you want, but that's enough.
Sorry. And Judge Carluccio, same question for you.
Okay, so I'm married. My husband, Tom. I have 3 boys. My parents, I'm blessed to say, are both still alive and involved in my life. I have a very large family. I am very involved in exercise. I love boot camp. I have belonged to 2 book clubs. I love to read. I've been involved in more boards and organizations than I can even tell you. I'm on the board of a university. I'm on a board of a AIM Academy, which is for children with language-based learning differences. I've been involved in so many women's groups. I've collected clothing for women coming out of imprisonment. I've worked really to encourage women all along. I've broken more glass ceilings than I care to even admit existed at the time I got there. But I brought women along with me because I think that is such an important thing. If I'm able to win this race, we'll be the first time in the history of this Commonwealth that a male-dominated Supreme Court will be run by more women than men. So I'm really proud of that fact. I teach 6th grade civics education. I've done it for 12 years. I think that is such an important thing. We go into a same 6th grade teacher. I've done it for 12 years and we teach every single month and it's been just very fulfilling. So I could go on too, but I'm going to stop. Thank you so much for asking that question.
Sure. So we'll just wrap things up here. If you each would please take 30 seconds and just sum up and give a final word to the attendees. And since you're both, from the Philadelphia side of things, I will also ask you to make your prediction for Game 7.
Oh, the Phillies are winning. There's no issue there. Jump in. Are you kidding me? Game 7?
And Judge Carluccio, why don't you go ahead and just take 30 seconds to summarize?
Okay, I'm going to take 30 seconds. Look, I feel like my background is extensive. I worked with Republicans and Democrats. I am not a politician. I will tell you that issues that come before all of us and social issues will come and go. But the one thing that does remain constant is the law. And my commitment to the people of this Commonwealth is to serve as a guardian of that law, to ensure that justice is delivered fairly, consistently, and in line with the principles that have guided us throughout centuries. Thank you.
Go ahead, Judge McCaffery.
Phillies win 7-3. They win 7-3 in this particular game, Game 7. They go on to win the World Series. By the way, the Eagles will also win the Super Bowl this particular year. I'm not sure about the Flyers, but the Sixers may make it a trifecta. So thank you all for doing it.
We agree on all of that, Dan. We agree on all of that.
Yeah, Carolyn, we just can't tell any of our friends from Pittsburgh. The black and gold.
Right. We love them when the Eagles and the Phillies aren't playing.
Yeah, they're all color coordinated out there too, which I really love about Pittsburgh, Western Pennsylvania. Thank you all for doing this. I appreciate it. I'm Judge Dan McCaffery, and as I mentioned beforehand, I bring 32 years of combined judicial and legal experience combined to the Pennsylvania Supreme Court. It's been my honor, my pleasure to become a judge. I understand that being a judge, whether it's a trial judge, whether it's an appellate court judge or a Supreme Court justice, it's really an honor and an obligation. Judges have to hold themselves to a higher ethical standard. Judges have to be above the fray. They have to be nonpartisan. And as I mentioned at the outset, most importantly, judges need to be clear, they need to be concise, and they need to be consistent in their application of the law. I think that's something I've really strived to do every single day, which is I want the law to actually reflect our societal values. I think the law does reflect that. I want to make sure that the courts are always considered to be a fair, unbiased, and nonpartisan third branch of government. The courts and our law and our legal system really held it down in the last 5 or 6 years when we've had all of this partisan politics at the national level and at the state level. And I'd like to continue that on the Pennsylvania Supreme Court by being that person who will do the right thing. As I've said before, at the age of 18, I took a vow as a soldier to protect and defend our Constitution and the rights enshrined therein. I took it again as a prosecutor when I was 26, and I took it as a trial judge and an appellate court judge. If I am elected to the Pennsylvania Supreme Court, I will once again take that oath, and I want the citizens of Pennsylvania to know that I will do so fairly and evenly and even-handedly, and I will always protect and defend your constitutional rights. Thank you very much for having me and having us.
Okay.
Thank you. Thank you again to you both. It's just so wonderful to hear from you, and it's so encouraging when good people step up to run for such important offices. You know, our system of government doesn't work if that doesn't happen. And so thank you both for the sacrifice that you're making, even just to run. So, and thank you again for attending and go Phillies. I'm going to turn it back to Debbie for some closing statement.
I just want to thank all the candidates for participating in our forum and helping to educate the voters of Pennsylvania. PMC, yes, supports merit selection, but since we haven't gotten it, we support educating our voters and getting out to vote. So voting is an important part of our democratic process, and voting for judicial candidates is extremely important. The judiciary has a huge impact on everyone's everyday lives. So if you need more information, go to our website, www.pmconline.org, or go to Committee of 70 or Spotlight PA or League of Women Voters. There's a lot of information now out there, and please use it and get your friends to vote as well. Thank you all, and have a good night, and go Phillies.
Go
Thank
Phillies.
Go Phillies.
Bills.